So we've come to the end of this journey. So don't worry, retire happy. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit more confident. You're feeling like you understand things. Please reach out to us if you have questions. We've gone through the 7 steps of retirement security. Have a game plan, maximize Social Security benefits, consider a hybrid retirement, protect savings from inflation, secure more guaranteed retirement income, and plan for long-term medical costs. Our final step is work with a holistic advisor. Oftentimes people say, well, yeah, I'm just going to do it yourself and I'm going to save expenses. I have to think of myself of Lowe's and Home Depot, and there are a lot of things. If you're a do-it-yourselfer, I'm going to save on expenses, but I do it. Now, do I really want to do it? I don't know. But people, some of the things to really sort of consider, should I do it myself or should I hire a holistic advisor, is one, people mistakenly confuse financial planning with investment management. Financial planning and holistic planning are much more in-depth than just choosing the investments you have. It's really important that you are coordinating your investments with taxes, income planning, estate planning. The other part that people don't consider is taking into account the aging process. We all want to believe that we are going to maintain our mental acuity, our mental fastball, if you will, throughout their whole life. And we never want to think of ourselves not being able to do things the way we've always done it. Now, there are some people that will live throughout their whole life and be sharp as a tack the whole time, but that's not always the case. So we have to understand that we may not be able to do the things that we do now. The other part about it is that if we're a do-it-yourselfer and we are self-managing it, how is our spouse? Is our spouse going to be able to step in if something were to happen to us? Either we were pass away or cognitively or physically, we are unable to do this role in the future. In our experience, very few couples are both spouses equally adept at equally managing and coordinating investments, taxes, retirement income, and insurance. Not only is it very rare that both spouses are equally adept, but oftentimes one spouse really has no interest or feels very intimidated by this. So one of our clients that we work with, he was in the investment field, and he goes, I have an investment manager because, and I have a holistic advisor because I have it for my wife, just in case something happens to me. So at Hartford Financial Group, as we've talked about before, we believe in holistic financial planning. I'm a certified financial planner. Melissa and Bryce are financial planners as well. And we agree to the 5 pillars or 5 principles of financial planning. And those consist of retirement income planning, investment management, taxes, insurance, and estate planning. So throughout this series, we've talked about all of those different things. The other part that we would want to say is we also want to make sure that you're working with a fiduciary, somebody that is always going to put your best interests at the forefront of the relationship. So as we carve off each of those 5 principles and 5 pillars, we've talked a lot about retirement income planning. That's really one of our big things. You have to have a game plan. That's our focus of the 5 areas. That's our primary focus. Have a game plan. Know your expenses and spending plan, as we've talked about. Maximize your Social Security benefits and understand how that works. And as Melissa was explaining before, we will also want to look at it from the standpoint of not whether my benefits just for myself, but for my spouse. Just in the event that I pass away, she is eligible for those types of things. If you do have a traditional pension benefit, you really want to make sure you understand those pension options. Oftentimes when I consult with our clients, one of the things that I will tell them is this is one of the biggest decisions you're going to make. And the mistake that people often make is they will choose the highest payout, but the lowest survivorship. And what we mean by that, if something happens to the one spouse who has the pension, the survivor gets nothing. Generally, we are biased towards having people take a lower payout, but having a higher survivorship, so that if something happens to them, their spouse still receives that income. Now, of course, it's a case-by-case situation. That's not true for everyone, but that's where you want to bounce your ideas off of somebody that can help you really come up with that game plan, that spending plan, and so on. And as we've talked about before, really looking at things through the lens of promise-based income versus probability-based income. Do you want to raise your floor? Do you want more guaranteed income? That's a decision that is unique to each person. The next phase is tax management. And one of the things that's really important is every investment decision that you make has a tax consequence. We are really focused on tax management. One of the maxims that we follow, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And when you make money, you have to understand Uncle Sam or whatever state you live in potentially will want tax revenue from that. One of the things that we're going to talk about is knowing your marginal effective tax rates and understanding those types of things and how that can change when one spouse passes on. Understanding how assets are taxed. Where do you take the money from? What's the order, the sequence of the money? And then one of the things we've been talking more with our clients is understanding lifetime taxes. Not just about the current tax rates, but what will they be in the future? One of the things that is happening right now is our country is $30 trillion in debt. Trillion, to give you the magnitude, if $1 is a second, then $1 million is 11 days. $1 billion is 32 years, and $1 trillion is 32,000 years. So when we think of $30 trillion, that's 960,000 and only growing. Most people reasonably say is that tax rates are going to go up over time. So we want to look at things. Plus, some of the things that have happened is that they've changed some of the laws in the last 4 to 5 years so that it's disadvantageous to inherit pre-tax IRA types of money as it once was. So as we look at measuring our tax bracket, it's really important to understand, have an idea of what our effective tax rate is and our marginal tax rate is, and understand as every additional dollar of income that we have, and as we pull money out in distribution, how does that affect us? What are the tax consequences? One of the things we talk about is legacy planning. And if you look on the left-hand side, those numbers are on the single, if you file single. One of the things when we talk about legacy planning is that when one spouse passes away, income goes down, but taxes go up. What does that mean? If you look on the left-hand side, the tax rates for the various income rates are cut in half. So the income could go down, but the taxes could go up. So we want to manage that over that lifetime. The other part that we want to look at is our tax efficient funnels and understanding how different things are taxed. We have pre-tax, post-tax, and tax advantage. It used to be where everybody was encouraged, maximize your 401ks, get as much money in your 401k and your 403b as possible, because you're going to take the tax deduction when you're working and you put it in, and when you take it out, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. And with what we talked about before, where taxes might be going up in the future, that may not be the case. Additionally, as we work with people that are financially successful, they have a lot of guaranteed income in the form of pensions and Social Security. They've built up significant assets. You may not be in the lower tax bracket in retirement. And finally, as we think of estate planning, one of the things that we look at is what is more advantageous for your heirs to inherit. It's much more beneficial for them to inherit post-tax and tax advantage money as it is compared to pre-tax. They changed the laws in 2019 on the Secure Act, and now if the kids inherit mom and dad's IRA, they have 10 years to liquidate it. Additionally, we talk about tax-sensitive allocation. So as you look on this graphic, you can see red on the left-hand side, green on the right-hand side. So red bad, green good. We use that to help people keep on there. But the thing about this is owning different assets inside of different accounts it's not as advantageous. So traditionally, if you look on the left-hand side, you can see bonds or interest income that in the form of bonds. That's the extreme red. So it's usually best to own bonds in pre-tax and tax advantage accounts as compared to owning them in the post-tax accounts. And that's with working with a holistic advisor. They can really help you align your investments between pre-tax, post-tax, and tax advantage in a tax efficient way. The third pillar or third principle, investment management. From the previous bullet that we talked about is, tax management. Investment management really should be coordinated with tax management. As we talked about, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So, you can have great rates of return, but if you're giving it away in tax inefficient ways, it may not be the best thing. One of the things we talk a lot about is the difference between accumulation and distribution, and the mindsets and attitudes that many of us have, and even many financial professionals have, as far as they're mostly accumulation. It's about building it up. But as you transition to retirement and distribution, starting to take them out, you sow the seeds in the accumulation area, and then you're reaping the benefits in distribution. You're drawing it out in retirement. Those are different skill sets. We have to be worried about sequence of return risk. That's something where, what if I retire in the middle of a bear market and I'm too aggressive? I may never recover. So what do? We believe in the time segmentation for our probability-based income using bucket planning and so on. We also think it's really crucial to know your volatility tolerance. You really want to look at a professional, and it's not just an over across the board of just a one size fits all. Some of the things that we really think about is making sure that we do it for the various periods. So as we look on here, we can see that difference between accumulation and distribution, and they're different skill sets. We use the mountain analogy as we go on there because the skills that it takes to climb up the mountain aren't the same ones coming down. Almost 70 to 80% of the accidents in mountain climbing are the coming down. And so it's real, you're tired, you're fatigued, you're all those different things. So it's really important that we have a game plan on the distribution, not just the accumulation. Additionally, we divide things up under volatility tolerance and understanding between the now and the soon bucket. How you manage your investments in the now and the soon is going to be different for the later, because as we talked about, the now and the soon is the first 10 years, and then the later is 10 years and beyond. Fourth principle of financial planning is insurance planning. Melissa really laid out to you guys about the medical costs. Oftentimes medical expenses can be one of your top expenses in retirement. It starts out usually for most retirees about the fourth expense, but it could go as high as fourth. You really want to make sure you understand Medicare and understand how coordinating employer-sponsored retirement health insurance could be combined, either having that or a supplement, making sure you have adequate health insurance. Life insurance, it's really understanding, making sure you're protecting your families. Well, some of the research that we've done recently is really finding the benefit of longer-term cash value life insurance that can provide tax advantages in retirement income. And additionally, when we think of those asset classes, as we talked about, the kids inheriting life insurance, that is a tax-free asset that we have. So it can go along with our estate planning goals. Let's talk about long-term care. We really want to make sure that we have examined that. Everybody needs a long-term care plan. Everybody doesn't necessarily need long-term care insurance, but everybody needs a long-term care plan. And then finally, our property and casualty. Working with your property and casualty agent, you really want to make sure that we have adequate levels of insurance for the things that are most important to us. Finally, as we go through and then we look at estate planning and as our final bullet, one of the things that we think about with them is we want to make sure we have an adequate estate plan so that we have protection as we age. As what I talked about before, we can't assume that we're always going to have that mental acuity, our spouses on there. So making sure we have things set up that, before that. We also want to make sure we have a game plan to adequately distribute our assets so it goes to the people and places we want to. Making sure we have beneficiary designations. Do we use trust? Do we avoid probate? All those different things. And finally, putting it and synthesizing it all together is coordination of tax management and estate planning. As we were discussing before, nowadays, it's so much more advantageous for your heirs to inherit post-tax and tax advantage money versus pre-tax. The other part that I would also say as we look at this slide, when we look at when we're looking at income planning, in the past, it used to be take post-tax money first, then pre-tax, then tax advantage. Because of some of these rule changes, now it's giving strong consideration to drawing from pre-tax first, then post-tax, then tax advantage. So we've made it through a great journey. I hope you've learned a lot. We hope we've given you guys a lot of value as you go through here. It's important to understand the 7 steps. Have a game plan. It's important, really lay that out. You and your spouse, if you have a spouse, making sure they have maximized Social Security benefits, as Melissa was talking about. It could be one of the largest benefits that you would have. I would include pensions in here. Consider a hybrid retirement. We're living longer. You may want to work a little bit longer so that your assets have a chance to grow and that you're not drawing down on them. Protect your savings from inflation. It's natural as we get to retirement to want to become much more conservative, but we have to understand that inflation is going to cause the cost of living to double almost every 24 years. So if we live a 20 to 30 year retirement, it's likely the cost that it had when we began retirement are going to be higher. Secure more guaranteed retirement income. That whole understanding of probability-based income versus promise-based income. Do I want to have more promise-based income that cover my essential expenses? Plan for long-term medical costs. You know what? We have contingencies, right? All of us envision ourselves being healthy all the way throughout the rest of our retirement. That may or may not be the case. And we have to have contingency game plans. And then finally, you may want to give strong considerations working with a holistic advisor, with somebody that is focused on this, helping you create that game plan and implementing. We often use the analogy of building a house. You have an architect that actually designs the house, you have a builder that builds the house, and then you have an inspector that looks at the house. Working with a holistic advisor, you could have somebody that helps you create the plan. That could be your architect building it or architect laying out the game plan. You could have somebody that's your builder that implements your plan, and then you can have an inspector. So we hope you have enjoyed this time together. We appreciate this. And if you have any questions, please, ask them right now.